Hello everybody, welcome to episode 13 of Shelf Review, where today we'll be going over episodes 40 through 50 of Monster. So this episode, well these, array of episodes, start off with us seeing Tenma on a train to Prague, because that's his goal for this little adventure, is to go to Prague, to go to these three frogs and figure out what Shuvald meant by this when he was telling him it. And so, by doing that, he's on a train, and he meets this man, his name is Grimer, and he's talking with Grimer, and the people come in to check his passport, and they realize that his passport is fake. So Grimer also realizes this and tells Tenma to jump out the window. And then eventually Grimer ends up meeting up with Tenma, and it's kind of a brief thing. And then through, dramatic irony in a way, not really not dramatic irony, but just through, our perspective, we learn that Grimer is an spy for East Germany, and just the Soviet Union in general. So with that, we progress along, and eventually we see Grimer looking into the 511 Kinderheim incident. So he ends up going and finding the man by the name of Biermann, and Biermann was the head of the 511 Kinderheim before, I believe he quit before everything like Johann and stuff happened. So he's talking with him, and he's trying to figure out what happened and just why it happened. And while we're doing this, we see that he is also now has a bunch of other kids, but he's actually treating these kids kindly, and he's not doing to them what he did in 501 in Kinderheim. So they're chilling, they're nice, and there's a bunch of orphan kids, so he's doing them good, and he's raising them up, giving them candy, food, desserts, all of that, giving them toys, so he's just raising them well. He's just trying to make up for his previous mistakes. But yeah, then with that, we follow along, and we see him eventually reveal kind of about Johann a little bit to Grimer. But before this can happen, the Biermann and his maid are both shot and killed by this blonde-headed woman who the kids remarked was utterly beautiful, ran up the stairs before before Grimer got back in to talk with Biermann. But while he's dying, Biermann reveals to Grimer that there is a tape in a safety deposit box that he needs to listen to that will reveal like everything. So with that, we progress along, and eventually we see Grimer kind of talking with an investigator about this stuff, and the investigator's name is that's Simon. Yeah, Simon. Kind of similar to Biermann, but yeah, it's Simon. And so he talks to Simon, and Simon's just like, yeah, since you were the first one on the case, we just kind of want to keep you at the station for a little bit. But yeah, after that, we move along, and we see Simon ends up, well, it's not Simon necessarily, but he gets in a taxi when he's leaving the police station, and sees two men. They end up taking him out way in the middle of nowhere, so they've essentially kidnapped him. He tries to run away from them, and then he hears two gunshots, and then Simon comes up, and he presumes that he's saving him. No, Simon is a double agent for the Czech Republic Secret Police Agency, and these two men are also with them. So they capture Grimer and attempt to acquire the information about where the tape is. And so with that, we see him getting tortured, he gets nails removed and all that. We see him almost go into a state, because what we learn about Grimer is that Grimer has not necessarily multiple personalities, but once he goes unconscious, he kind of becomes a beast, and he will kill people. But yeah, we see a person come in, and they shoot one of the people, and then Grimer is released, and it's presumed that he kills the other two people, but I don't know necessarily. He at least does a lot of damage to them, because their faces are bashed in and all that. But yeah, he ends up escaping, and the police end up coming in on this, and we are then introduced to a young investigator by the name of Suk. And Suk, with Suk, we learn that he was a deep admirer of Simon, and throughout his investigation, we see him just kind of slowly, deal with Simon, and then eventually Suk learns that Simon was with the Czech Secret Police, and this really saddens him and breaks him. But throughout all of this, Suk has been going to the bar and speaking with this beautiful young woman, and we see who she is, and it appears to be Nina. So he's talking with Nina, and they're slowly chatting it up, slowly building a relationship, and they progress along, and then eventually one of Suk's friends is like, well, if you're not going to date her, send me to her. So he ends up going to her, and she doesn't end up falling for him, but she gives him these whiskey bonbon candies. And well, we go back to the police station, and we see that the kind of higher-ups in the police station and the friend who got the whiskey bonbons are all kind of cooperating together to try and promote the, efforts of the Czech Secret Police, because they're all with the Czech Secret Police. And so with that, they're all dirty cops. And with that, we see them all eating the candy, because one of the dudes mentioned having a headache, and he's like, I could really go for a glass of whiskey. Another dude's like, you want a whiskey bonbon? And he gives him one. So they all eat the candy and they all die, and it's said to be a muscle relaxant. And you know who this kind of seems similar to? It kind of seems similar to like the director at the beginning of the series of the hospital. Ava's dad. Eva's dad, man. Yeah, Ava. So, but yeah. So with that, we see them die, and then Sook is put under investigation because of this, because it seems suspicious how all these people died. Sook's, I guess, this person that Sook admired died, and all of this stuff. So he's put under watch. Well, eventually, we see Sook searching out Grimer because he believes Grimer is responsible for killing Xymon because he knows that he had contact with him before his eventual death on that day. And so he ends up searching him out, and then he learns that Grimer was not the one who killed Xymon, but it was rather, I believe, Nina. And just with that, we see this slowly go on, and after Sook learns that Xymon was really in the wrong, he kind of breaks down. He's like, I don't know who to believe in anymore. And he's going speaking with Nina, and he's like, the only person I believe in now is you. And well, in that scene, we see Nina walk home, and it all comes off. It was Johan. Johan was Nina. And this was just really surprising because I was not expecting that type of thing to be happening with Johan. But yeah, Johan did a perfect disguise and acted it perfectly as Nina. He's been living Nina's life in Prague for a while now because like the people in the neighborhood all know him and stuff like that. And there's this really cool scene later on where the actual Nina comes to Prague and everyone's talking to her, chatting her up, and she's like, all these people know me and I've never been here. And it's just really, really cool. Like, it's just psychological in a way. But yeah, we see this, and then Grimer and Sook kind of get together to try and figure out what's going on with the Czech secret police. So they go along, and eventually it gets to the point where they are going to listen to the tape, and they listen to it, and eventually Grimer's like, I can't listen anymore. So they end up going along, and the Czech secret police come after him again, and they're like shooting him, gunning him down, and all that. And eventually Sook takes a lot of wounds, so he's badly wounded. And Grimer is freaking out, so he eventually has this sleeper agent like snap and break, and he ends up going on and killing multiple of the Czech secret police. But after this, he runs in with Tenma again, and him and Tenma learn to get in contact with the Czech secret police. And well, during this time, Sook is captured by them, and he's taken to a hospital. He's taken care of. But yeah, so this happens, and throughout this, Tenma goes to see Sook's hospitalized mom because he believes that she can help him figure out where Sook may be. So they go and try and figure it out, and eventually they end up meeting with the Czech secret police and talking out like what to do, how to get Sook back into safety, and how for the Czech secret police to, I guess, technically get the recording without actually physically getting it. So eventually we learn that Sook actually left the recording with his mother when he'd previously met her. And so with that, we move along, and we see Nina come and sit in with this woman, and she's like, just telling her, chatting up, talking about Sook and all that. His name's actually Jan Sook, so, but yeah, he ends up, they're talking about Sook, and she eventually is, once again, this is not actually Nina, this is Johan, and Johan ends up learning that the tape is there, and he alters it, and he puts his own voice, I guess, note at the end of it. And so eventually then Tenma and Grimer and the head of the Czech secret police, they end up figuring this out. So they end up going and searching for it, and they end up finding it, but they don't get to listen to the whole thing because the Johan has now altered it. And so with that, we progress along in our story. And I forgot to mention this earlier, but the children who were with Biermann were all sent to an orphanage, or just separate orphanages afterwards, and Grimer's kind of been keeping up with them, and Sook was going to arrest him at one point, but he realized that he was a good person, and he was working with the kids and all that, and he knew he was guiltless, so that kind of just, he's been dealing with these kids through and through, and he's kind of acting like a little bit of a father figure for them, even though he can't portray emotion because he wasn't taught emotion back in 501 Kinderheim. So, as we see that, we eventually get this kind of side story in episode 49, and it is about this little boy, and this little boy, he really misses his mother, and he ends up ultimately running in with the Nina Johan, so actually Johan, and he ends up running into her because what he's been trying to do, and what all the other orphans have been trying to do, is prove Grimer's innocence. Like, they have put like papers on the door of the old apartment and all that. And so, in pursuit of doing this, he goes to find the blonde-haired woman, which he ends up finding. He ends up finding Johan, who's dressed as Nina. And they end up talking and all that, and Johan is breaking down this kid psychologically, and eventually it gets to a point near the end of the episode where he's like, yeah, if you run down that road, you'll eventually find your mom. He sent this kid into a red light district where this kid saw horrendous things, was done horrendous things to him. He saw multiple women, I guess, acting like they were his mother and then casting him away just as a joke, and he ends up seeing one woman get sexually assaulted. And then eventually we just see him, like, eventually Grimer and Tenma are searching for him, and they eventually find him, and he's on the precipice of a bridge. And he looks like he's about to jump, and luckily Grimer is able to save him and put him in his arms, and he just consoles him, and Grimer shows actual emotion for technically the first time really in the series. And that episode 49 was a rough watch. That was a dark episode, and it really made Johan irredeemable in my eyes, because how he did that was just really, really unacceptable. But, yeah, so after that, we see Lunge, because Lunge is back investigating everything. He's on a vacation in Prague, and he's really investigating Tenma and the Johan case and all that. But we end up learning about the author of this book. His name is Franz Bonaparte. Yeah, I don't think it's not pronounced Bonaparte, but it's Bonaparte or something, or Bonaparte or something like that. But I was just calling him Franz. And they end up finding out about this author, and they know that this author had close connections with Johan and Anna's mom, or Nina's mom. So it's possibly presumed that this is their father, and I don't know if it's known to be dead or not yet, because they know that their mother is not dead, so they're going to look for her, but they also I don't believe they know if the father is dead or not. And so, but the book that this man specifically authored was the one that Johan was reading all the time, the one with the munch, gulp, gobble, gobble, gulp, gulp. I can't remember. It's like munch. I can't remember. But yeah, so that little ditty that they say multiple times and how Nina reads it out. But yeah, that book, the one that essentially Johan's entire story arc is based off of. And so, after they figure this out, they kind of keep connecting the dots, and Lunge eventually is drawing in on just more about Johan, and he knows more about how Johan is he doesn't know necessarily that Johan is portraying himself as Nina, but he kind of learns connecting things, which will eventually probably lead him to figuring this out, because Lunge is a phenomenal detective, even though he's flawed in his ways because he's too stubborn to go off his path. But yeah, after that we see more progress along the way, and eventually we get to the end of episode 50, where we see a parting point between Grimer and Tenma, and they're talking, and Grimer's like, yeah, I'm gonna have to be on the run for the rest of my life. Well, not really, but he's his person, because Grimer is just a fake name that he's been using, and so his actual name is not under threat, but his visage obviously is, because they know what he looks like and all that, and he's been posting in the papers. But yeah, after that, Tenma sees this little boy injure his knee, and he scrapes his knee up, and Tenma, being the good man and doctor that he is, he goes up to help the little boy, and he's putting some antiseptic on his knee, and then they come out of nowhere, the investigators, and he is surrounded by just everyone, and Tenma gets arrested, and that's how episode 50 ends, and the Prague arc ends. So I'm honestly really worried, yet excited to see where this goes, because the next arc is only, I believe, a 7-episode arc, because it's 51 to 57, so about 7 episodes, 6 or so. But yeah, so I'm really just concerned about how, I guess, Tenma is really going to deal with this, and how Lunge is going to pursue it, because Lunge is in Prague, so he will learn that Tenma got arrested. And I'm just really excited to see where that goes, because it's honestly a new path that we haven't really seen yet, because so far Tenma's been evading the police and all of that very successfully, and he's only had one brief run-in with Lunge. So I'm really, like I said, really excited to see where that goes. Now, I guess that is the end of my review, and I guess the next thing I'll probably be doing is a review over Paralandra and another Shonen Short on Monday. So yeah, thank you for watching episode 13 of Shelf Review, and that's all.